Last week, Meet Kevin threw out a challenge to all the different finance and stock YouTubers to gain legitimacy through transparency. So today I'm going to do my best to share my portfolio with you guys. But first, before we get into my portfolio, I wanted to share a little bit about what makes being a YouTuber, what makes being a finance YouTuber especially really, really difficult. You guys might remember a little while back, those of you who've been watching the channel for a while now, I did a series on how we took a $200 investment, started a small business here in Japan, and turned it into over $1 million in revenue. And in that series, I share a lot about my priorities, my goals, and I talked a lot about how difficult it was after the pandemic started and the economy started to fall apart. As a tourist-based company, that downturn really hit our company hard. And so one of the challenges for me is, like I'm often talking about, buy the dips and constantly dollar cost average, take a portion of your salary and put that in. But what happens when I don't even have a salary? What happens when I have a team who might have to lose their jobs? And the struggle that I've had the last year is like, yeah, I get really pumped up about stocks. I get really pumped up about seeing gains, but I get even more pumped up about, taking care of my family and taking care of my employees. And I know the smart decision is to let them go if the company isn't working well. But my priority in life is to be able to love these people and to be able to continue to take care of them, help us transition by gaining new skills, this YouTube channel being one of them. And through all of that, triumphing eventually. And so when I'm sharing about my portfolio, if I go into too much detail, it actually ends up being like not really helpful for the average viewer. But even more so, like I've had to take gains so that I can pay my staff or so that I can invest in a new project where normally I wouldn't. And I wouldn't recommend you guys doing so either. But another really tricky thing that I think we all need to think about is that when we look and we see YouTubers who have $20 million portfolios or even $1 million portfolios, like a large percentage of us can't actually apply what we're learning. And another struggle personally is like, I don't have a $1 million or $20 million portfolio. We did a poll on the channel recently, and we found out that a good number of you, it looks like 42%, have a $50,000 or less net worth, while it looks like about 41% have more than $100,000 net worth. And at the same time, 27% of you guys have a $250,000 net worth. So there's like a really big range of people watching this channel. And there might be some of you guys who have $1 million portfolios. But at the same time, there's probably a lot of you guys who would look at my Japan video series and say, wow, you turned it into $1 million? That's like a really good job. There's probably some of you guys who are like, yeah, $1 million, that's like how you do business. That's the point of doing business. $1 million, good job, buddy, kind of thing. And at the same time, another challenge I have as a foreigner living in Japan is that I'm always trying to figure out, and I'm always like constantly being a student of the culture. And most of my friends are Japanese here, and I work with Japanese people and all this stuff. But one of the challenges I have is that money is like really, really private here. And nobody talks about like their net worth or like how much money they make or anything like that. And at the same time, it's also a culture that prides itself on like being humble and stuff. So when I moved here from LA, one of the really confusing things to me was like, I would see people who I know make 80 or 100K a year driving around in like a $500 car. And I think this culture generally like applauds that. There are some people who are like, yeah, I'm a hot shot, what's up kind of thing, who will drive around in a Porsche or like a crazy Lexus or something like that. But for the most part, Japanese culture is like very humble and not flashy. And so I struggle, like, how much should I share? Is it actually going to be helpful? Am I going to make enemies? And you might argue like, yeah, you don't want those people in your life anyways if they're going to hate you for growing your net worth or whatever. And I agree with you. But I know that I don't know everything about Japanese culture. So I just want to be cautious and careful about that. So I'm going to break down my portfolio and share about the different percentages, and just know that it is well into the six-figure range. We'll just leave it at that. And I'll share the percentages about, what kind of stocks and what kind of crypto I own and stuff like that. You guys know I have a few houses as well for real estate income as well. So you probably guessed it. My largest holding, and also the most dramatic holding by far in my portfolio, is Tesla. Right now sits at about 25% of my portfolio. It's been as high as like 60%, but based on market movement and also taking profits to keep other things going or starting projects, I've cut that position down a little bit, but that's still by far my biggest holding. We could end the video there because most of my other positions basically pale in comparison to Tesla. And to be honest, I do have a lot of like really small, weird little plays that I'm kind of like either dollar cost averaging into or just kind of exploring still. And I just grabbed a little bit. But I did want to share some of my other more major higher conviction holdings with you guys too. My second largest holding is Apple. Confusingly massive market cap of 2.2 trillion now. Similar to Tesla, I've bought in and out of it many times, and it's done really well for me over the years. I still believe in it very long term, and I think it's going to keep growing. But if you looked at my cost basis, you'd be like, dude, you haven't been in this for a long time. But it's because I'm always buying and selling in and out of it for other reasons. And so Apple makes up about 11% of my stock portfolio right now. Currently, my third largest holding is the stock so many people love to hate, Palantir. They just had a big news day, a big presentation day this morning, and went down again as usual. I'm really in this stock for the long term. I don't do a whole lot of buying in and out of it. Sometimes I'll do covered calls or play with like cash secured puts or things like that, but it's my third largest holding and currently sits at about 7% of the portfolio. Some of my other notable larger holdings include ARCG, SCHD, Nokia, Dropbox, BEP, Tattooed Chef, Costco, BPY, and Skills. And like I mentioned earlier, there are a few other like smaller weird holdings that I haven't really talked to you guys much about yet. But moving on to my crypto portfolio, crypto is a little bit simpler. And admittedly, I'm not like super up to date on all the new like Cardano and all that stuff. We did like a poll recently, and there were a lot of you guys mentioning Cardano. Bitcoin makes up 51-ish% of my portfolio and recently exploded Ripple, which I've held for like years. I think I originally got in at like 10 or 16 cents or something like that. Recently it's up to like $2. Might end up breaking its previous record of more than $3. Makes up about 20% of my portfolio. And then there's like Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and a few other guys sitting around, which make up the rest of the portfolio. I do also have a good chunk of cash sitting around on the sidelines because I like to look out for opportunities. And in one of the live streams last week, we talked about a private equity deal that one of my really good friends from middle school, like a good old friend, invited me into a company that he started. And so when opportunities like that come up, I'd like to be able to help out and invest in those kinds of things as well. So having cash around is also security for, you know, the current situation with not knowing what's going to be happening with the economy and being able to take care of people during that transition. Interestingly, I did a poll on the channel a little while ago, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, talking about like, what is your goal with your finances? And I gave a bunch of different options, but it looks like 51% of you said your goal is to provide for your family and loved ones abundantly. There's kind of a good mix of most of the other options, but 28% of you said to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it, steak and Ferraris. And so for me, people were asking me where I fit on that. I'd probably be number 2, to be able to give generously and potentially massively. And so that's something I've built into my financial plan all along. And actually giving makes up a bigger percentage of my like finances than any of those other shares or holdings that I've mentioned earlier. And so even when things are hard, I'm committed to giving. I'm committed to helping people out around me and helping out the community and stuff like that. And so that's definitely my priority. Of course, I want to have Ferraris and steak every day, and I want to be able to take care of my family and live in baller mansions and stuff like that. But my priority is very different. And so I hope that gives you an idea of who I am, what we're aiming for, and kind of like what powers this channel, what fuels this channel. And of course, we all want to be helping each other to become better investors and learning more and developing our skills and making good gains. But in my experience, there's no real good point in doing that if you're not healthy, if you're not taking care of your loved ones and people aren't, you know, happy and energetic and growing and learning around us. And so that's where my priorities lie. And I also wanted to know, where does giving fit into your budget? Where does giving fit into your investing, so to speak, investing in the people around you? So hopefully this video provided some transparency for you guys to be able to trust me and to be able to build more relationships. Thank you guys so much for your feedback, especially on one of last week's live streams. You guys gave me so much encouragement, so much feedback that reminded me that I need to be transparent and I need to be unbiased because those are the things that you guys really like. So thank you guys for that. Let me know down in the comment section where giving fits into your portfolio and if there's anything else you guys want to talk about. Thank you guys very much for your time. Love you and talk to you soon.